Looking for a strategy consulting role where you create meaningful impact without giving up your weekends? Wow, that sounds pretty good to me. Well, then Stax might be the perfect fit for you. The firm enjoys better work-life balance than industry benchmarks for many reasons. First, Stax doesn't employ the typical Monday through Thursday travel model and does not require employees to live at the client site. Second, the firm focuses on the most important things that matter to solving the client's problem, leading to more focused engagements. Third, global research and analysis teams provide overnight support so you can focus on thought leadership instead of formatting slides. This does not mean that you won't work hard, because you certainly will, but you can rest assured you'll experience a greater attention to work-life balance at Stax compared to most other consultancies. The firm is hiring across its 3 U.S. offices. See current openings and apply at stax.com, that's stax.com, or click the link in this episode's show notes.
Strategy Simplified, have we got a treat for you today? Today's conversation is between Jenny Ray and Shane Arthur. Shane works with hundreds of executives a year to help remove roadblocks in their way from unlocking their full potential. In this lighthearted conversation, Jenny Ray and Shane dive into the differences between consulting and coaching. In addition, Shane shares how he works with executives to unlock their potential and about top mistakes that young leaders and executives are making. If you're curious about working with Shane, there's a link in the show notes where you can learn more about what that looks like. All right, let's get right into the conversation between Jenny Ray and Shane Arthur.
Shane, welcome to Strategy Simplified. We're really excited to have you on the podcast today. And number one, we need to just get to know you. So can you share a little bit about your background? And we're not going to get into the depth of who you are like we are a little bit later in the conversation, but just give us some of the highlights. We can frame your background in the context of the rest of this broader conversation.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Great to be here. Grew up in Richmond, Virginia. Pretty normal childhood. Went to college at UVA because it rained when we visited William and Mary, and it was sunny the next weekend at UVA, so that's where we went. Finished that, fell in love, college sweetheart, married her. We have 2 kids now, a little girl that's 7 and a little boy that's 5. I went on staff with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, which was a group we were involved with when we were students there, and it was a great fit. And so I got to do work at Old Dominion University down in Norfolk for a good while, and then moved into management roles for the next 12 years, founding a new region and leading that. So a long history of working with great leaders and helping them grow. And then about 5 years ago, made a transition and started an executive coaching firm, which I now run.
I want to know all about your leap into consulting, and specifically, you kind of talked about the difference between consulting and coaching, which we'll unpack a little bit later. But when you were trying to decide out of all of your experience, right, you'd worked with not just people, but with organizations. How did you decide on focusing on the coaching piece? Can you just walk through the journey into the leap?
Yeah. Had kids, traveling too much. The next promotion was right around the corner and was ready for something else. Had a great freak weekend at the beach with some good friends. And everybody went to bed except for me and my friend Jason. He went to Duke and got his MBA with my wife. That's how we know them. And he kind of did his consulting thing on me, just ask all the questions. So what do you do? And I started answering the question. He said, no, drop the Christian thing. What do you do all day? What are your best stories? What are your best deliverables from the past 5 years? What do you tell your donors? And he did that for 2 hours. And we finished, and he said, I've got 2 thoughts. One, you'll never work for anybody else again. You had too much autonomy working for this organization. That's not normal. And 2, I don't know if you know what it is, but you're an executive coach just waiting to get started. I'd never heard of it before. I was, had moved up a couple of levels, but I was nowhere near the senior level that would be hiring those types of folks. I think this was 17 or 18, we had this conversation. And he said to me, Shane, it sounds like you've spent 18 years in 4 different roles, and you've fashioned your week so that at least 20 hours of every week was you sitting across the table from a talented leader, helping them be better at their job. It's like, yeah, isn't that normal? And he laughed. He's like, it's not normal. It's just your story. There's a whole industry that's grown up around supporting executives, and I think you'd be excellent at it. So that's where the seed was planted. 2 months later, I asked if I could coach him, and he let me coach him for free, just every other, but set up outside of an organization, right? And then probably 3 months later, I found another client that I was excited to work with. Same question, can I coach you for free? And then 2 months after that, I signed my first client, and it's been a bit of a ride since then.
So I want to know what it was like moving from the structure, even though you had a lot of autonomy of an organization, to building your own consulting practice. What is something that you didn't know how to do that you had to learn how to do?
I didn't know how to sell. I think when I started it, I'm grateful we reached out to some friends that we kind of guessed maybe had executive coaches, and they did. They all gave us 30 minutes, and all of them introduced me to their coaches who all gave me 30 minutes. It's just there's a kindness that really met us when we started this journey. And every single person said, Shane, you're probably a really great coach. Your experience is incredible. You've never sold anything a day in your life. You got to figure that piece out. And that's really what made this possible. That consistent response from 3 different total strangers after hearing my story for 30 minutes. So I put my face down and studied selling for almost 2 years. And it was amazing figuring out.
Can we unpack that a little bit? I mean, the studying of selling, because it's a common thing, right? Inside consulting firms, you're not selling the executive coaching piece. You're not selling a recurring contract with a person. You're selling a value proposition with an organization. But many people battle to leap through the transition from doing the analyst or the consulting job, which is solving the problems and operating the day-to-day and figuring out what needs to happen, to the kind of more people influencing side of the job in sales a little bit older. So what did you learn? What did you learn from studying selling? I feel like so many of us could gain something from that.
Yeah. What my major takeaway was, you have to figure out how you sell best. There's no right way to sell. There's just a right way for you. And I'm lean introverted. I like deep conversations. I don't like surface level conversations. I'm not very good at them. But I kept reading books and I kept learning, and I finally read the right language that helped me realize my problem was I'm really good at delivering value. And I think that's how people hire people, right? Like, I get on sales calls with folk and they're trying to figure out if we're the right fit. They're asking all these exploratory questions, but they're not delivering any value. Super confusing to me. I don't understand that type of sale. And what I learned through my process was just to deliver value. So when I hop on a call, usually with a referral, my business is almost entirely based on referrals, I get through 3 minutes of pleasantries and I just start coaching. I just ask, so why are we on the call today? And it just goes where it goes. And they get to experience value. They get a phone call with coaching. And if they love it, they want more. And if they don't, we're probably not a good fit. But I learned to move quickly to delivering value rather than trying to sell, like trying to pitch, trying to close. I was with somebody the other day who was in sales, great meeting in his office. And he's like, so what's your close? I was like, there's no close. Like, you just experienced who I am, and either you'll call me next week or you won't. Either one is fine. And he was blown away because he's in sales and he's used to really heavy closes. It's not what I do. I don't enjoy it. And it doesn't work with who I am.
We'll be right back after this quick break.
Have you ever heard a new digital trend and thought to yourself, okay, does this really matter? Asking the right questions helps you cut through the noise and get down to what matters most. I'm Jim Hertzfeld, host of the What If, So What podcast, where we discover what's possible with digital and figure out how to make it real by asking what if, so what, and most importantly, now what? Subscribe and listen, and together we can turn big ideas into tangible actions so you can get shit done.
So tell us a little bit about what, kind of unpacking this and discovering this, meant for your business. How has it grown? Where are you now? What's the next mountain for you?
Yeah, great question. I like working with a small handful of very talented people. I've got 2 young kids. My wife runs a charter school here in town, which is a big chop. And I didn't want crazy hours, right? I didn't step into this for that. And so one of the first things that my coach helped me understand was, what type of business do I want to build? And eventually we came up with this idea that I always want to work with between 8 and 12 clients. That's the right number for me. I love high attention. I love being in touch with people. I love text between phone calls about questions, but that was the right range for me. What she figured out was, once I got 12 and went to the 13th, that's when I had to raise my prices. And so that's what I've done for 3 years. Pretty big jumps. As long as there are 12 people I'm working with, when the 13th is ready for a proposal, there's a pretty big markup. And then I keep working with the 12. They get 6 months at the old rate, obviously. They're people that I've been working with for a long time. That's worked really well for me. It's allowed my business to grow. I've been surprised that the higher price points get me into better rooms. I didn't know that. I came from the nonprofit world. I thought the rates were already reasonably high. And so now to hear from people, oh, that's really reasonable, is not the answer I expect, but I'm starting to get it more and more with some of the rooms that I'm getting into and some of the people that I'm getting to meet.
Shane, we have you on the podcast for a couple of different reasons today. One, because I just think that you have a really interesting business story, and we love to highlight business stories. So I feel like we're getting some great insights here. But another is that you and I had a conversation at the end of last year about the difference between coaching and consulting. And I'm imagining it's probably a part of your narrative when you're explaining to people who work with both in their businesses what the difference is. So can you explain just a little bit about how you talk your people through what the difference is between what you do and what they might experience with consultants? Because I think that would help our audience understand it a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, I'm not stepping on toes. I appreciate the name of your company here. My general answer is consulting has to do with transferring knowledge about something from one person to another in a setting that looks a lot like a one-on-one conversation often. Coaching has to do with drawing things out of people. So I coach people in every industry you can come up with. It is easier for me to coach people in pharmaceuticals because I know nothing about pharmaceuticals. And so anything that comes out on the call is going to come from my client. I actually have to be a little careful when I coach people that are in the nonprofit space, because every once in a while I have the answer for the problem that they're dealing with. And I've used the language probably since the call you and I had to be able to say, hey, just so you know, I'm putting on my consultant hat real quick because there's an answer to this question about how to do it well. But that's not generally what I do. Generally, what I do is drawing things out of people. My sense is I work with some really great leaders, and they know all the things. They just have to find them. And I don't think they're in my head. I think they're inside of their head. I'm just trying to get it out of them.
I love that. Can you talk, without obviously sharing names, just about the demographics and the type of leaders that you're working with? Like, are they executives? Do they own their own companies? Are they are they younger? Do they have families? Like, talk about some of the things that are the nature of who they are, and then also some of the conversations that you have that maybe surprised you from the beginning. I'm imagining, for example, and I don't know if this is true, so you debunk it if it's not, but that you thought originally these conversations were going to be about work and about growing in work and about kind of advancing in work. And maybe they weren't all about that. So anyhow, just share a little bit about who these people are, who these mystery 12 magical people are that get the privilege of working with you.
Yeah, almost everybody comes to me with some kind of professional challenge. They just made a big move. They feel like they need to make a big move. They're stuck. And it goes deeper. You never quite know when it's going to happen. It could be the third call or the fifth call, but all of a sudden we're talking about their childhood and some kind of real serious thing that happened that is impacting the way they're leading professionally today. I enjoy helping people connect dots between who they are and how they're operating. I think that's a big missing component to the way that we think about developing leaders these days. Most of who my clients are people who are, they lean entrepreneurial. A number of them have smaller 1 or 2 people firms, and then a number of them have grown things that have 100 or 200 employees. But they almost always have a decent bit of autonomy. They're usually people who operate maybe with a board above them. I don't do as much. When I started, I was landing with some clients that were a little bit more in larger firms, and that hasn't lasted as well. I found that my sweet spot has more to do with people who are in charge, who are CEOs, usually smaller privately held companies, and then a handful of executive directors that run things for nonprofits or foundations, and they bring all kinds of things. I have no idea what's going to happen. It's not a it's not a remedial type of coaching. It's certainly not an accountability relationship. Whatever we talk about in this call, 2 weeks later, we get through the pleasantries, and I just say, January, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about today? And people get to bring anything, and it's always a surprise what comes up. It could be a major personnel issue. It could be a big fight with a spouse. It could be I heard about a school board the other day where somebody was trying to get fired, and my client was right in the middle of it. And it's like, okay, that's what you needed today. I'm ready. Let's go. Tell me the story. And then I'm just trying to find out what's going on. Why are they stuck? Why are leaders that are this great stuck on something, and how can we get them out of it?
How does somebody know when it's time to hire you?
Yeah, it's almost entirely referrals, right? I don't do a lot of marketing in any way. Most of my referrals come from usually clients who are already working with me, and their referrals usually come to people that are close to them. Distant referrals don't work with me at all. Usually when clients are referred to me, they've already heard stories about me from their friend. And something will happen, and my client will hear something and say, January, I think it's time to call Shane. And it's that simple. I'm not somebody who chases goals. I am drawn to transition. I'm really interested in change. And so when people are at moments of big change, that's usually when they get introduced to me.
I love it. Tell me one thing that's a downside of your new world that you kind of didn't think would be there, right? I think sometimes the underbelly of things, and I'll give you an example for mine, maybe give you a little bit of time to think about this question, but actually a lack of structure was really hard for me because I didn't know when I was done. I didn't know how much was enough. And so I, my first couple of months now, I started working from home. It's been 15 years. I've had a role, a lot of autonomy, kind of as you've mentioned, but moving from a structured environment where somebody else was not micromanaging me, but where they were at least setting deadlines, or there was a meeting to work toward, when they're like, that just didn't exist anymore. Right. And actually it was part of what drew me to it, because the lid was off. I could make 10x what I made before. I could do it in as little time as I wanted, but I just didn't know when I was finished. Like, could I get away with not working long nights? Could I get away with not working weekends? So I'm not saying that would be in all the same thing for you, but for me, that's often the downside that, when people say I'm drawn to entrepreneurship, I'm like, just be careful, because there's this boundary setting that you maybe didn't learn, that you're either going to have to learn or it's going to break other parts of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's entirely true for me. I don't, your mind gets going, right? Like when you build something that you love it. You love thinking about it. And so I'm building shutdown routines before I go pick my little girl up from school, so that I'm not thinking about things. I'm ready to put my attention on her. The thing that came up when you started the question had to do with trying to be too much for everybody. I think when I worked for a larger organization, I knew all the people to send people to, right? When we got too far towards HR, quick introduction, right? Now it's trickier. I kind of like being the guy with the answers. And so it took a couple of years to recognize I play an attorney sometimes on these calls, and that's a problem. So kind of building my own set of referrals, knowing, yep, we're outside of the bounds of what I'm really great at. Let me introduce you to somebody who I think can help you. And I found that that's super normal. All of my clients, whenever they run into a problem, their first thought is, who can help me with this? And I grew up in a middle-class background where we learned, how can you do stuff without paying people, right? Like that was that's been a shift that's been happening for me. So that was one of the things that I noticed pretty early on.
We'll be right back after this quick message.
Are you looking for your next role in consulting? Then Investor Group Services, or IGS, needs to be on your list of target firms. At IGS, you'll work closely with senior firm leaders to help private equity and corporate clients make better investment and strategic decisions. The work at IGS involves a blend of research and strategic consulting, along with plenty of collaboration with client stakeholders. Find out for yourself if IGS is the perfect fit for you via the link in this episode's show notes or at igsboston.com.
Well, shifting from your own learnings and some of the challenges, which, by the way, I think that's super insightful, and a challenge that consultants have too, because they always want to sell some more work, right? But then, and we know that given enough time and resources, like we're good at sourcing the problem. And so, but how do you underpromise and overdeliver when you get paid to overpromise and underdeliver sometimes, right? Ultimately, like it kind of comes down to the dollars and cents of that. So there's some boundary setting and some maturity that comes in. But my other question is not about you, but about your the folks that you work with, right? Like, what's a mistake that a lot of these young executives make that you either help them avoid as they're about to make it, or you help them unwind after they've made it, or you help them repattern, something that they're kind of making?
Yeah, so almost all of my clients fit two adjectives. One is talented, which is not a surprise. The other is kind. And I find that kind and talented people end up saying yes to too many things. They're often not chasing just more money. They're often chasing more impact. They're often thinking, oh, there's another opportunity for me to take care of somebody. I'd love to do that. I was on the phone this morning with a guy who needed to have that conversation. Not a client, but somebody I've worked with in the past reached out and said, hey, can I get an hour? Of course, right? We hop on the phone and he starts listing all these new things that he's spun up since we hadn't spoken last. He's like, Shane, I think I'm doing too much, but I love it all. I love people that have that many ideas, that are so interested in solving real problems in this world, that they need help recognizing what are the big ones, or what are the ones that they're so well suited to solve, and what are ones that they just said yes to because they're kind and they're talented and they're probably the best person in the room to solve that problem. It's not actually what makes their heart beat. It's not what they want to be known for 20 years from now. I know enough of his story to know that he needed to have two conversations with one person that he's very close to, and he was hesitating to have them. And so I basically just spoke his words out loud for him. And he was able to say, yeah, that's the phone call I need to make. So I don't know if he's made it yet, but I hope he'll set a meeting pretty soon. Because we have these, so often people have relationships that intermingle, right? I think in my prior life, I was used to having relationships that kind of ran in one direction. And now I'm finding that friends and work and church and the neighborhood, like they all kind of run together at some point. And I love that. I love having an integrated life, but it does create some challenges when you have that level of partnership with people. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened in this. We were trying to talk about a business opportunity, but there was a relationship thing going on that he was nervous about, just scared to say it out loud. So that's the kind of stuff that I love to help people uncover.
I love it. Now, as you've been talking, I feel like I can't picture the age of your clients. And that might be because they're 20, 30, 40, and 50. But like, how old are these people that you're working with, these kind and talented people that are leading organizations, right? Or have some kind of autonomy where they are? Are they like 50 and 60? Are they kind of, in that age group? Or just tell me a little bit more about who these folks are.
Yeah. Almost all of my clients are between their late 30s and their early 50s. So I'm 42, I'll be 43 in a couple of weeks. And there's kind of a range on either side of that, it feels like. Most of my clients have kids still at home. That's a big part of the conversation. I think when I started this, the coaching industry tells you to get paid up front, either 6 or 12 months at a time. And helps people be committed, right? But the reality is it just helps your cash flow to get all that money up front. What that did for me was it made me play with older people. Like I had more and more clients who just had more assets, more ability to write checks of that nature. And so I was having more conversations with people 3 years ago about, Shane, I've got 1 year left with my son at home. Help me make it the best ever. Whereas now more and more clients are, my daughter's 4, help me think about how to operate when I'm not sleeping through the night, or, things like that. But it does feel a little bit more like we're not playing catch up anymore. I feel like I'm catching people much more in the heat of a very real battle all day for their time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The folks who are closer to 40, in my world at least, are juggling all the things, right? Marriage, kids, aging parents. Whereas previously, when I was working with folks who were in their later 50s or even some early 60 clients, like they're in a different season. They're a little bit more reflective. They've got a little bit more space to breathe. I still love those folks, but I find that more and more clients now they're younger. They're in the middle of juggling all these things. I don't think we've seen that before. Like I don't quite understand demographics very well, but it does feel like we're reaching a peak stage in our career. Lots of people are having children later. Often our parents had us later, so they're dealing with their own health concerns a little sooner than I ever remember. I went to college with 4 very healthy grandparents. That's not going to be my kid's story.
Mm-hmm.
So I do feel like there's a lot of stuff that people are juggling all at once right now in this generation.
That's good. And so you talked about making a strategic business decision that then opened up access, right? You moved from the 6-month billing to a monthly billing process, and all of a sudden, right, the accessibility of that age group, dropped and became more available to you. Now, you and I had a conversation recently about the fact that your main focus in the future was just same client's price increase. And I loved it because that was one of my main learnings from consulting. I remember walking into my second project ever at Bain, and it was a client who had a policy called a no walk rule. It was basically discount until you get the client. That was it.
Yep.
Right. And we came in and we were like, we get that you studied economics and that there is this pricing elasticity. And if you reduce your price, you're going to get more clients. It's just that you don't always get more profit that way. And you definitely don't build the business that you want. And so we made a proposal to them that they actually stop discounting at all. And they almost fell off their boardroom chairs, but we ran some analysis for them. It was helpful to have the analysis in our back pocket, and little whippersnappers trying to change, a 40-year business practice. And in the first month of their trial, they lost no customers, right? And for me, it became a pattern that I saw. I worked on 11 projects when I was at Bain, 10 different industries, and almost every client wanted to discount as their primary tool for client acquisition. And the answer was almost always raise your prices, add more value. And so anyhow, when you and I have had this off-pod conversation, I've loved that you knew that was kind of, the pattern of the way forward. That's been always a big value proposition for us. You want it cheaper, go somewhere else. You want the best, come to us. And that's how I've built this organization. It's one of our core values and one of the ways that we focus on delivering. But we also talked about how there is something about growing volume that you have to think about too, right? So talk to me a little bit about what you're working on now, or how you're thinking about that. Kind of we had that conversation, and then are there any moves that you've made that are making not what you do, but the concepts and the leadership that you have in the space accessible to other people?
Coaching is a wild space. What coaching was pre-COVID looked a lot like coaching looked in the 50s. Right. It exploded, and now it's a wild industry. And because of doing it and exposure to people, I get into lots of conversations with folk that are just a little earlier in their career, right? 25, 30, maybe 35. Or what I'm doing is it's just not accessible to them yet. They're not going to make the choices to hire me. But I found that it's really hard to tell, right? Like, who are the coaches that can help you? And I know lots of people in the industry, and I love to send referrals, but But I did realize that it wasn't a sales issue. It wasn't that I wasn't helpful to them, right? Like, I love having these calls. I love getting in DMs with people on LinkedIn and just tell me what's going on. What are you thinking? I love it when people have thoughts based on one of my posts and want to ask me some questions. But I kind of got tired of only being able to help them for a little bit, right? Because they weren't going to be clients, and there's a reality there with my time. And so eventually, really based on the conversation that you and I had really recently, I reached out to some people that I worked with for almost 10 years, people that I've been developing and coaching that whole time, and just said, hey, you want to try something with me? You want to see what's out there at a much lower price point, much more accessible price point, but some really great coaching, people that have been shaped and molded by me so I can stand behind their work really easily. And it's still a highly intuitive coaching. Like, there's no rule book. There's no manuals for them either. There's no worksheets for you to fill out. It's the same style of coaching, but it's a little more accessible. And so we're testing that out. We launched it on LinkedIn end of last week, and we've had 7 people sign up for calls so far just to see if it's a good fit for them. It's really fun to think about. My previous experience was developing leaders in the nonprofit world. And so now the chance to try on the same hat again, almost to develop leaders all over again and see what's possible. I do think people are yearning for development. I'm hearing from my clients about how younger folk are asking for more and more development, and they're not used to that, right? They're not unkind people, but they're not used to putting so much of their energy into developing their people. And so, yeah, I do. I love that yearning. I feel like I had that, and it was strange. I felt like when I was asking for mentors 20 years ago, people were thrilled to help me with that because nobody was asking. Now everybody's asking.
So good. Yeah.
And
Such
so the chance to step into that a little bit, it's been really fun. It's been a neat little turn, even very recently. We're talking about the last 6 weeks.
Well, I want to wrap up with 2 final things. The first is if you can just give us any sage advice. A lot of our listeners are as young as 17 or 18 making a decision on colleges they're going to go to. Some of them are in their 50s and 60s. They're building businesses or exiting or building a second career around consulting or something related to that. So obviously a huge and wide spectrum, but just what are 1 or 2 pieces of recommendation from getting to be in the privileged space of working, and touching people's hearts and their businesses and their families that you would recommend to the listeners? And then after that, I'll wrap up with a couple fun questions.
Yeah. 2 pieces of advice would be, number 1, there's people in your life that know you really, really well. They care deeply about you, and they're always weighing how much of their thoughts about you to share with you. You should ask more. You should look at your circle of people that are closest to you and put aside time and tell them you'd love some real feedback from them about who you are as a leader, what your character is like, how they could see you growing. People build beliefs about you. And I'm so regularly finishing a coaching call and saying, who can you go talk to about this that knows you so much better than I do? They can really speak to these things. Second thought is, we are dying for lack of alone time. Our calendars are so full with meetings and tasks. Anytime I get on a call with a new person and I'm trying to let them know that I know them, I say, so on a given work day, how, other than being in the bathroom, how many minutes a day do you think you're alone? There's something powerful about having some space to think. And we are just filling ourselves with so much. I'm a huge podcast fan, and I'm regularly asking clients to not listen to podcasts for a week, to keep taking their walks, but to leave their AirPods and their phones at home. Just see what happens. I remember walking around as a 20-year-old without things in my ears. That was normal, to just have space to think. We need that more and more than ever.
I love it. Well, let me wrap up by asking just a few fun questions. So the first one is either your favorite game from childhood or the favorite game that you're playing with your kids right now. It can be an imaginary game that you made up or a game that all of us would know. Answer however you want.
I love it. So the big turn in our house, ours are 5 and 7, and we did Ticket to Ride Junior for a number of years. And my 7-year-old was at the store the other day and saw that there was an adult version. And so we've brought home the adult version, which she is in love with. And our 5-year-old is almost there. He is fighting to understand the rules, but we are actively playing the 4 of us, usually with my little boy on a team. But that is the current hit game in our house.
Wow, I love that. We're big Ticket to Ride fans, but we've only done the junior edition. So don't tell my kids that there is an adult edition.
We all be travelers too. So there's also every continent basically out there.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's not abnormal for my kids to be like, we should probably go there. Bulgaria. Like that's a place we should go.
Yep. And then you book a flight.
And then we go.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
second thing is that not normal, Shane? We should talk about that maybe. The second thing is tell me about a dream car you have. I don't know if you're driving it. I don't know if you already owned it when you were 18 or if it's something that you'd want to own or just drive one day. But what's a dream car?
So I've always wanted a Jeep Wrangler. I think I was
That's such a child of the 80s thing to say.
Yeah, it was so cool. And I'm very careful. I have a careful mind. And I think I always saw people riding around with the top off. I was like, where's the top? Couldn't somebody break in and steal stuff? I have all these questions about safety. And as I get older, I'm recognizing I'm a pretty big guy. I don't really fit in Jeeps very well. But I do see a day in the future where a Jeep Wrangler shows up. It feels a little frivolous and very fun. Yeah, that comes to mind.
I love it. Yeah, maybe rent one in Hawaii or something like that and see whether it's your jam. Yep. Try it on for a week. I don't know. That doesn't seem your style. You're more of a dive into the deep end kind of guy, I think. The last one is, and I will provide some context for this question. My husband on a boat on Sunday wore a Hawaiian shirt, rainbow shorts, loafers and socks. It was a very concerning outfit choice for me. There's photographic evidence of this. Do you ever have fashion commentary in your house? If so, what is happening behind that fashion commentary?
There is occasionally a comment from my beloved wife about how frequently I wear shorts when it is terribly cold. I will regularly check the weather, and as long as the first digit is not a 3, I will usually lean towards shorts and a hoodie as my running around town kind of outfit, and that is humorous around my household.
I love it. Good. Shorts. And one final last one is a bonus question. What's a fun place that you would love to go that you haven't been yet, still on your list?
Haven't been yet. It's a good question. I'm very drawn to spending time in Scandinavia. I feel like I've mapped out a trip there a few times. And,
in shorts, right?
I would think so. We go in the summer, so it would be short.
It'd be in the 40s
for me. Yeah, it'd be in the 40s. That'd be fine. Thick hoodie, we'd be fine. Yeah, that comes to mind. We spent a little time in Italy a few years ago, and that was the first time we traveled overseas. And I thought, I could live here permanently. So, I'd like to see a little bit more of the continent, I think.
I love it. Thank you so much, Shane, for your time today. Thanks for sharing your vision, your story, and a little bit of your background. It was really fun for me, and we're glad to have you on the podcast. I hope you'll come on again.
Love to. Super fun. Appreciate you.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation between Jenny Ray and Shane as much as I did. As I mentioned at the top of the show, there's a link in the show notes where you can go to learn more if you're interested in learning how Shane works with executives. In addition, we'd love to hear what you're thinking about the show right now. Feel free to send us an email, podcast@managementconsultant.com, or fill out the survey linked in the show notes. We'll catch you again on another episode of Strategy Simplified very soon. Cheers.